My name is Prathijna Poonacha Kodira. I'm an assistant professor at the Indian Institute for Human Settlements University. And I'm very excited to welcome you all to this first webinar of the series Masters for Impact. Today we'll be speaking about two of our master's program out of the 5 that we offer at the universities, Masters for Sustainability Science and Practice and Masters for Climate Change Science and Practice. This is 2 out of the 5 masters that we offer. And I'm very excited to be joined by 2 of my colleagues, Professor Amir Bazaz, Professor Jagdish Krishnaswamy, who will be speaking to us about these 2 masters. So let's start with an introduction. Professor Jagdish, can I ask you to introduce yourself, talk to us a little bit about what you do, and what has your journey been so far?
Yeah, so I've been, thanks, Prathijna, and good evening to everybody. I started my career as a civil engineer, but before I did my civil engineering bachelor's degree, I was already interested in nature, so I was an amateur naturalist. So after finishing my BTech in civil engineering, I went on to work for 3 years in an organization, Development Alternatives, where we were exposed to appropriate technology and also the sustainability of both of built environments as well as semi wild managed ecosystems. And then after that I went for a master's in applied statistics and a PhD in ecohydrology. I went abroad for that and I came back, and then I have a few decades now of work in the broader area of ecology, environment, climate change, and sustainability, and moving from semi-wild ecosystems in forests and floodplains and rivers and mountains now to mega cities. So the entire spectrum from semi-wild through rural to the urban. So that's been my journey.
Thank you so much. Professor Amir, can I ask you to introduce yourself?
So good evening, everyone. My name is Amir, and just like Jagdish, I am also an engineer by training. That was my first degree. So spent a lot of time working in engineering or engineering places, manufacturing most importantly. But then shifted gears, went into PhD. Now, one of the most interesting thing about me as an individual is that when I started working on my PhD, that was the time when climate discourse started taking shape and root in the Indian context. So we are like at least, and in some ways, Jagdish also and Pratigna also, we are like first generation of climate intellectuals who are homegrown, homebred, and who understand the full contemporary history of climate and its impacts in the Indian context. So that ways, uh, what we offer and what we produce and what we articulate is rooted in hard realities that we have experienced ourselves. So, apart from that, I work on climate, of course, but I also work on energy systems and I also work on disasters and disaster resilience. So, these are my broad categories of work at IHS. I teach across many masters. Infrastructure is one important category which I teach, and when it comes to climate, infrastructure becomes climate resilient infrastructure. So we are living in an era when these disciplinary buckets don't matter. Interdisciplinarity is the key word and the buzzword because that allows us to mingle, mix, theorize, articulate better, which is in line with what the realities are. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's just jump straight into the conversation. Today we are here to talk about 2 of our master's program, the Master of Science in Sustainability Science and Practice that Jagdish, you kind of anchor. So can you tell us a little bit more about this program and what will students learn from this program?
So sustainability science and practice has emerged as one of the major challenges in redefining development over the last many decades. And it goes back to all the different planetary boundaries that we are breaching, whether it's the nitrogen cycle, whether it's the water cycle, climate change is also one of them, but also related to pollution, biodiversity loss, and all of these planetary boundaries, while at the planetary scale, we also have local manifestations of all these challenges, whether it's a settlement of whether it's a village or a town or a city, or an agro ecosystem or a semi-wild ecosystem, or how we manage the city as well. So basically, the components of sustainability science and practice draws upon our understanding of how the natural system operates, whether it's the water system, whether it's the our climate system, whether it's the biodiversity and ecosystems, and how it intersects with the sectors that matter to us in terms of human well-being, whether it's agriculture, whether it's industry, the built environment, the interactions between built and the natural environment, and how, in terms of managing our water, in managing, making sure that we don't pollute the air or the water, and we also retain as much biodiversity as we can, and we find solutions for many pressing challenges, whether it's food security or access to clean water, or reducing pollution in the cities, or the heat stress that we're going to get from because of climate change, as well as the heat island effect in cities. How do you find solutions to these using the power of nature in terms of, so this nature-based solutions is an important part of it. And how do you craft a sustainable campus, a sustainable industry? How do you manage different parts of the city so that people can live comfortably in a safer environment, even with all the environmental changes that are happening? And how do you also become a professional in this field? How do you help industry or your institution, or a farmer, or a agribusiness to become more sustainable and to prosper without causing environmental degradation? So that's in a nutshell. We want to help generate a new generation of practitioners and scholars who understand how to take the concepts from ecology, environment, climate change, and biodiversity, and then combine it with the requirements of industry of different kinds, and in human enterprise, to foster a sustainable future for the coming decades.
Thank you. So that's a broad coverage of topics under this program. So let me shift to Amir. Amir, can you tell us a little bit about the Master of Science in Climate Change Science and Practice, and what can learners expect from this program?
So thanks, Prathijna. As Jagdish also mentioned and highlighted, that sustainability is this broader umbrella that shapes the relationship between the natural and the human system. Climate sits as one part of that broader framing. But what we offer in this course are, in one ways, three important things. First is that the way we have designed this course is rooted in the contemporary imagination of our country. So it is not esoteric, it is not hypothetical, it is very pragmatic and rooted in the everyday realities of the life experience. So it's very contemporary. That's very important. Second is that a lot of economic and non-economic systems everywhere in the world are going to shift to another set of equilibrium because of climate. And what this course does is gives you the language, vocabulary, and the analytical frames to understand what those shifts mean for everyone. For the economic systems, non-economic systems, people, vulnerable sites, vulnerable ecosystems, everything. Third, it empowers you with a lot of skills, both analytical, procedural, and mechanistic skills that allows you to engage with the prospects of what the solution space should look like. Jagdish, my colleague, talked about uh, focus in the sustainability science course being on how we can catalyze the power of nature and move towards a new era of harmonized relationship between human and natural system. Uh, so in climate also, we are focused a lot on the solution space. It's not very esoteric, hypothetical, as I mentioned earlier. It's rooted in the everyday realities of what is possible and what is not possible. And these are the three broad categories. So you'll be given skills, you'll be given analytical frameworks, you'll understand the vocabulary, you'll understand the vocabulary of how do we engage with markets and government systems so that the solution that we craft or create is sustainable, is acceptable to everyone, and it doesn't destabilize a set of people, a subset of economic system, etc. Finally, this is an add-on. What it does is allows you to engage with the contemporary discourse of how policy is being rewritten, recrafted, and reshaped, which means that a lot of focus is on understanding this, this word called climate governance. Climate governance is not about administrative governance. It requires a different way of thinking. It requires reordering of incumbent structures of governance, incumbent processes. We talk a lot about it. We also talk about money. A lot of new things that we require to put in place require money. It allows you to critically understand what kind of money flows exist and what kind of money is required and where can we get this money from. It talks a lot about these issues. And these are the add-on features apart from understanding the basic foundational 101 of climate rooted in the Indian context, aligned to the solution space and not being very esoteric and exotic, but in aligned to the everyday realities of life.
Thank you so much. I think that's a great description. I just want to tell the listeners that if you all have questions, please, you can put it in the chat box and we'll pick up the questions after we've had the conversation. So I wanted to ask you all, when we talk about sustainability and climate change, a lot of times this is often confused with one another, at least in the common understanding, in the layperson's understanding. Can you tell me one thing that differentiates the master's program in climate change science and practice and the sustainability science and practice? What is that one differentiator between these two programs?
Yeah. So one is that, that we have many systems on which we depend for our well-being. And the climate system is one of the most important ones, no doubt. But there's also other support systems, whether it's biodiversity or nitrogen cycle or the water cycle. And of course, climate change intersects with many of these systems. But the difference between the sustainability science and practice and the climate change science and practice is that the emphasis is on some of the non-climatic drivers also of sustainability. And so just taking the example of nature-based solutions. Nature-based solutions are basically you use the power of natural ecosystems, the mechanisms, and the biodiversity to help solve problems. So let's take some problems in Bengaluru. We have water pollution. So you could have a constructed wetland that uses plants to absorb nutrients and contaminants, and you're improving the water quality. Now, that would definitely be on the sustainability side of things. Now, a subset of nature-based solutions is called ecosystem-based adaptation. Anything related to climate adaptation, mitigation. So, for example, if you want to reduce the heat stress in Bengaluru, And so it's a different frame of looking at the same nature-based solution. So, for example, it could be an urban green space. It could be the design of buildings to keep people cooler under an environment which is heating up, and the design of any type of multifunctional landscapes in terms of the interaction between built and the natural environment, so that in term we are meeting many of our climate action goals, whether it in terms of helping people adapt to the changing climate, but also to get access to all the other resources that they need, like clean drinking water, and access to recreation, to or to a clean environment, um, with in spite of climate change. So in some sense, while there are a lot of connections between the two, the sustainability science and practice is focusing along with climate change, but a lot of the other drivers of environmental degradation, and therefore the solutions that are oriented towards that. Many of these environmental drivers have been there for many decades, whether it's air pollution or water pollution or the loss of biodiversity or the degradation of soil fertility in agroecosystems, and all of these things are addressed in the sustainability science and practice, and climate change is intersecting with them. So we actually have a lot of courses in common between and teaching and learning. It's between both these master's programs. They're well connected, and yet each one has its very distinct flavor. The frame that is used. So the climate practitioners are there, and because climate change is such a huge issue, and then you also have folks who have to still take care for example, solving sustainability issues for an industry or a campus, or for their institution or a building, or some agroecosystem or an agribusiness, and so that will remain and intersecting also with climate change. So in that sense, there are connections, but there are also these very distinct flavors that each of these master's program has.
And perhaps the market does require a range of skills across both climate change and sustainability science.
Yes.
To respond to some of these current challenges.
Yes.
So Amir, would you like to add something to this? What is distinct about the CCSP, the Climate Change Science and Practice?
Yes. So let us be a little operational about it. In climate change science and practice, I think the start and end are the greenhouse gases. That is the defining feature, which means that we are concerned about CO2, we are concerned about methane, and we are concerned about nitrous oxide. We are also concerned about fluorocarbons and in some cases water vapor. These are the gases that contribute to the greenhouse effect. And the course uses that as a prop and anchor and talks about the science of it, how is it getting produced, and how is it manifesting into what we witness in terms of extreme weather, extreme temperature, erratic rainfall, etc. It also looks at how all of these climate hazards, as they are called, impact communities, production systems, households, people, cities, regions. And then it talks about how and what we can do to reduce these greenhouse gases being pumped into the atmosphere, and also looks at options and ways which we can minimize the adverse effect of what is already in the atmosphere. This is what the course is all about, particularly climate change. So it's very focused on the concept of greenhouse gases. So everything that we talk about is around this broad concept.
Thanks. So we are definitely touching upon mitigation, but also adaptation and many other things within the course. Okay, so let's move forward. I want to know what is the kind of students who can apply for a course like this. So Jagdish, what is the profile of students who apply for this master's program should look like?
So sustainability science and practice is an interdisciplinary field. And it needs, there's an economic dimension, there's an ecological dimension, there's a technological dimension, there is a social science dimension, there is environmental humanities, there's also arts and other design elements to it. And communication, effective communication, training, capacity building, engagement with policy, and also engagement with a wide range of stakeholders. How do you fashion sustainability in the real world? Therefore, actually, you need people from all walks of life and from all disciplines. And only then sustainability can actually be achieved. And you actually need these different disciplines to talk to each other, to learn from each other, and to co-produce solutions, which are not going to be just defined by just say engineering or only by ecologists and so on. It actually needs all of the different dimensions that I mentioned. And therefore, we welcome students from all disciplines as long as they have a passion and interest in fostering sustainability, and also to become either a scholar or a practitioner. And we offer opportunities for them to move towards research and academic careers, but also towards to become practitioners. And in some cases, practitioners and practice and academics and research, in fact, feed into each other. So we don't really distinguish between. We think that even academics should learn some practice, and practitioners should learn some the concepts and the science. And therefore, in that sense, actually, I would say that any discipline, any person from any discipline, as long as they have this interest and they also are thinking about how they can contribute to this in the future, this whole idea of sustainability and linking it to human well-being, and how do you achieve that in practice in across settlements, across ecosystems. How do you do that? And that's basically why we welcome people from everywhere.
Well, interdisciplinarity is the hallmark of IIHS University, and we as faculty also have a very interdisciplinary mix of, both education and work experiences that we come with. So, Amir, I wanted to ask you, I'm sure it's a similar kind of a profile of students that you would look for even for the climate change science and practice program. But what does interdisciplinarity really look like in the climate change science and sustainability science and practice program? What does how do you bring in interdisciplinarity in this program?
So, on this question of interdisciplinarity, there are many answers that can be given. But let me first begin with responding to a question that my colleague asked Jagdish about the profile. And last year, when we first started having discussions about what should be the entry criteria, etc., one of the things that was asked to me, okay, if someone wants to do climate change science and practice, what is the mandatory precondition required? And the answer that gave is that a person who is as far as the concept of climate science is best suited for this course. The reason being that climate, say, and this is partly answering Prathijna's question, climate and scholarship around climate is being created in real time. Nothing is definitive. Nothing is cast in stone. So therefore, all we need is an orientation towards learning. People need to just be open to learning. Now, on this question of interdisciplinarity, I will illustrate this with an example. Someone who has done public administration will come and say that when we talk about climate governance, we should try and think about three-tier form of governance system, There is panchayats, there is an urban local body, there is state government, there is national government. Sociologists will come and say that this is a wrong unit of analysis. Sociologists will say we should look at the societal structure as the basis of our analytical inquiry. Psychologists will say that no, we should address the fears and anxieties of people who are most at risk. So we should organize our governance frame based on that. Imagine all of them coming together in real time, crafting, creating, and as my colleague Jagdish mentioned, producing knowledge together. Imagine the joy in that. Imagine the uniqueness in what you create. Imagine the innovative ideas that you bring together. It may or may not succeed, but the ability to conceptualize a problem from an interdisciplinary point of view, the ability to work together, the ability to think about solutions in an interdisciplinary way, and to basically try and test it in real world solutions, a real world setting, is a remarkable learning experience to have. And that is what we promise here. We don't promise that you will reach the moon, but we will empower you with the ability to be able to reach the moon. That is our promise.
Thanks for your response. So just moving this conversation forward, what can the graduates from this program expect to work as, or the industries that they can work? What is the career trajectory for graduates of this program? Let's start with sustainability science and practice.
Yeah, actually, it's a very broad field. You can, for example, let's start with semi-wild, rural, and then I'll get to the cities. So think about a coffee plantation in the Western Ghats, and they are faced with the many problems related to markets, to pests and diseases, to climate variability, water stress. And yet they have to sell coffee and make a living. So then, how do you make a coffee plantation or any other type of agribusiness sustainable in terms of water use, in terms of the inputs which are less intensive in terms of fossil fuel consumption. So you have to reduce the carbon footprint, you have to reduce the water footprint, you have to reduce the amount of waste that you produce, you have to reduce the amount of effluents that you release into the environment, and you have to give the people who work there a very safe and a nice environment to work in, and the coffee that you produce will reflect that and have a market of its own. So how do you package all of this? How do you design all of this? Similarly, for a industrial estate, how can it become more biodiversity friendly? I mean, it might appear very challenging, but there have been lots of examples where with some creativity and some knowledge and awareness and capacity, you can actually build campuses and institutional spaces that have a very low footprint in terms of carbon. They're very rich in biodiversity. So there was one study recently that showed that institutional campuses across the country, they have 50% of India's bird species are found there, which means that there's actually a lot of opportunity for us to craft sustainability across all the different challenges that we have in terms of the environment, ecology, and climate. And it basically can be done at scale. So that is something that, you need to be able to replicate it, which means that you should be able to have conversations with different people in different sectors. Like Amir said, you should find the the right way to, for example, can you get carbon credits for your plantation? Can you also market your coffee in terms of saying that it's sustainability produced, and we treat our workers very well, and it's also has a very biodiversity rich coffee plantation. These are things might actually end up giving it some sort of a premium in the market. Similarly, making our food safe, with reduced use of pesticides and chemical fertilizers, and how can we make our food system and agricultural system less water intensive, less chemical intensive, and producing safe food for all of us. And you apply that to any other sector of our in other industries. How do you reduce your environmental footprint, and how do you then, in some sense, together make all these different components of both industry, agriculture, education, the built and the natural environment, all of that together, how can we make it better for us overall as a society in the coming decades? So that's basically something that we hope to achieve through this.
That career pathways.
Career pathways are there in all, ecotourism. It can be helping an industry achieve its targets in terms of sustainability. You could also become a conservation practitioner, how to restore degraded land, degraded lakes, and ecosystems. Or you could help a campus becoming green, or you could also be advise the government sectors which are working which are intersecting with the environment and sustainability issues. You can become an advisor to them. You can work in the non-governmental sector. You can also if you wish to become a researcher, get into academics, then this is a very hot field actually, because this is the need of the hour, and we don't have that many people who may be grounded in different, they might have come from different disciplines, but then once they become a sustainability scholar or practitioner, how do you then teach the next generation? And that's a very important task, because we really need lots of folks working in this sector in the coming decades. So this is basically, I think the opportunities are immense.
Yeah, both domestically and internationally.
Yes.
I assume that
Yes.
the opportunities
Yeah.
are quite
Yeah.
quite a lot of them. Amir, what is your sort of reflection on the career trajectories of students who graduate from a climate change science and practice program?
Well, pretty much everything that what Jagdish, my colleague, talked about. But let me give an add-on perspective and something that all of you who are attending this webinar then can check for yourself. So every year in January, we have this World Economic Forum in Davos. And when that meeting happens, the Secretariat releases a report called the Global Risks Report. So it is a survey of around 1,500 all top executives from all around the country, all around the world. And they list down what are the top challenges or risks. Of course, in contemporary times, you hear, and rightly so, that geopolitical fragmentation, geoeconomic fragmentation is an important risk. But there are two categories of risks, two categories of reporting. One is like the immediate thing, and one is over a 10-year cycle. And if you look at the 10-year, next 10-year risk, all the top three are climate risks. Which means what? Which means what? That just like we have uh, a teacher who is omnipresent and everywhere, in schools, around, etc. Climate people will be required everywhere. There will be new positions that will be created, because this is about survival and this is about our as a species existence. So, and if you jump onto this right now, even sustainability science, then I can very strongly say that you have made the right decision. Because The other thing what you can do is that there is a global skills report that LinkedIn publishes every year, and it tracks what kind of jobs were created and what kind of hiring happened over the previous year. All the five top jobs are climate aligned. That's where most of the demand is, because everyone wants to understand institutionally, as Jagdish was articulating, from a market point of view, from a government point of view, from a civil society point of view, what can we do to bend the curve, as we say, to be more aligned to nature, or be in harmony with nature. So this is going to be everywhere. It is going to be at all places, no matter what context, no matter what era. This is the future, and this is going to remain the same like it for many, many years to come.
Thanks, Amir. I mean, that's a lot of food for thought for us to chew on. But I also wanted to ask you if there are opportunities in the course, in the program over 2 years, that allow students to interact with the industry. Are there sort of, if you can take us over, what are those opportunities and what are those points of interface between industry outside the classroom, and how does that really work in the program?
At IIHS University, we subscribe to a value system. The value system is very simple. That if we kind of examine any kind of geographical scale, we understand that there is a natural system, there is a human system, and there is an economic system. And they interact with each other. This is like 101 class 10 environment science. And our foundational principle is that we don't take a philosophical position, but we are critical about what we witness. And we are critical inwards, like we examine our work critically. We are also critical outwards. But we are also inclusive, which means that every knowledge counts, every evidence counts, and every perspective counts, which means that as a pedagogical philosophy, our mandate is to talk to everyone. So, for example, in our courses, you will listen to industry practitioners. In the next class, we'll bring a civil society activist who will probably critique what the industry practitioner will come. But we don't direct you to in terms of drawing conclusions. What we tell you is to assess the quantum of evidence that has been produced. Verify for yourself, for which we give you skills. So that's our pedagogical philosophy, and that's what we subscribe to.
Jagdish, would you like to add to it? Is there any sort of structured interaction with industry as part of the program? Are there internships? How do you sort of?
So apart from what Amir said in terms of bringing practitioners and people who have been active in the field in actually achieving things on the ground or influencing policies, those folks come in and share their thoughts and insights. We also have, at the end of the master's program, we have an option of either doing a thesis or an internship. The internship could be at an industry with an NGO. It could be with even the government sector. And similarly, the thesis could be a little bit more collecting data or evidence on some research problem or even monitoring of some system. So the thesis and the internship or an attachment to a project offers this flexibility. And depending on the career pathways that the students want to get onto, this gives them that flexibility. So that's one aspect. And the topics that can be covered in either the themes or the sectors that they can get and they can engage with through the internship or the thesis option are everywhere. and it could be, all the way, as I said, not necessarily in the city, but even away from the city, or because at IIHS we work across the entire spectrum of human settlements and social ecological systems, from villages through towns to mega cities, and also covering both rural and urban in that sense. So it actually all over the country. Of course, it's much easier to do it a little closer to home. So yes, there were some opportunities will be in Bengaluru, but they could also be in Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, or even elsewhere,
In the Himalayas.
Himalayas or the floodplains. And so actually and we have built over many years of work. We have built a network of folks in different institutions, including our alumni who have graduated and gone on to do many things, plus all our collaborators who would be welcoming many of these master's students and hosting them either through internships or even supporting their thesis research. So that is basically the two things, what Amir mentioned about bringing folks and interacting with people from industry and other people, practitioners, and then also this opportunity to then go and do something through an internship or a thesis.
So there's ample opportunities for diffusion from within the classroom to the industry outside.
Yes.
Great. We have a bunch of questions that have been coming in from the participants, but before we take that, I'd like to ask another question, which is, now we are going into the second year of teaching, and we've already finished 1 year. We launched the programs last year. So I want to hear a little bit of a reflection from both of you on how it has been to teach this program in the last 1 year. What has emerged as interesting, what has emerged as challenging. I'd like to hear a little bit about that. Maybe we can start with you, Amir.
Well, it has been actually quite exciting. But one of the things that like stays with me and has stayed with me is optimism and hope. I think what I have discovered in my classes is basically some kind of hunger to solve problems which are on our faces. And I also see a lot of optimism and hope that with whatever knowledge or skills we acquire, we can solve. So that pleases me, makes me very happy, and kind of, in a way, closes this loop, virtuous loop. But as an educator, that is what I would like my students to go with, optimism and hope. The second thing that I think what I have discovered through my teaching is that I think everyone really wants to do something for the place from where they come. I think there is a sense of responsibility, moral and otherwise, that I see. And that gives me a lot of, um, uh, I look at it with a lot of achievement, sense of achievement, because I think there are two ways to solve problems. One is to go top down, reorder systems, but the other way to solve problems is rooted, organic, bottom up, taking all of them together. I think that philosophy I am seeing getting operationalized in my classes, and it pleases me quite a lot. And it is also some kind of a validation for what we believe in, or what we have believed in over so many years here at IHS, and seeing that visible in front of us gives me a lot of happiness.
What is really, actually, in some sense, very inspiring is that many of these learners, they're first generation learners, many of them come from underprivileged backgrounds, and the hunger for knowledge and acquiring skills is very evident. They also bring stories. Just to a group of folks who have come from, say, Central India, they come and talk to us about the issues of Jal, Jangal, Zameen, issues which are very critical to the both rural as well as urbanizing landscapes there, and the problems that they actually have seen with their own eyes. And now they are getting a frame to look at those very problems and find solutions at different scales. So this is something that, in that sense, the faculty and students, when they engage with these issues, we actually are in some sense co-producing knowledge also. It's not just about the traditional conventional way of teaching. It's actually co-producing, because the questions that they ask in class are very insightful. They are sometimes based rooted in the realities of their of what they have experienced as a child or as a young student in those environments, and also acquisition of skills. They are want to acquire the skills that will get them a job, because many of them actually have to get jobs after finishing this master's, because they need it economically. And so that aspect is also there. And there are few who want to work for a few years after this, and then some of them might actually go on to do higher studies, like a PhD. So we have students who are really trying to take advantage of the opportunities, and always asking us for more exposure. They enjoy the field trips. They enjoy the opportunity to look at real world problems, and they enjoy interacting with practitioners and resource persons in different places where they go and visit, and they get exposed to new problems and new types of issues, and they're in some sense soaking it all in. And then they are very quite hopeful also. And of course, like anybody who is wanting to find a job in the real world, yes, there will be some creative tension, because yes, they have to acquire the skills, they have to build the confidence that they can do well in after they graduate. So that's basically the sense that I get with my interactions with these students, and they are wonderful learners. And they're very sincere, and we are quite lucky to have had this first cohort. So and they have formed different clubs also, like for example, the nature club, where they actually go out on weekends to different places in Bengaluru to watch birds or to learn how to identify trees, to look at natural phenomena. They sometimes go and visit the science gallery or to other places where there's very interesting exhibitions and talks happening. So they're making the best use of the opportunities that our institution and our campuses as well as the city provides.
That's both very encouraging and exciting to hear. So thank you so much. I think we'll take the questions now. We'll open the floor for questions. So listeners, if you have questions, please type it in the chat box. In the meantime, I'm going to read out the questions that we already have. So this first question is from Chaitra Sangam. It says, good evening, professors. May I please ask how well are the programs being talked about aligned with building sciences and architecture? And if BARC graduate students are eligible for the said program?
So, as I mentioned earlier also, it's not a question of alignment, it's a question of interest. If you are interested in solving certain kinds of problems that our cities or connected rural areas are facing, then all you need is that interest and nothing else. So there's no restriction attached to a particular discipline, etc. Having said that, if someone wants to take it forward and build your practice around a particular discipline, you will benefit from this course, because you will then be able to expand your disciplinary perspective by bringing in these new interesting ideas from other disciplines and offer more long-lasting and more viable solutions to the problem. So that would be my answer.
Yeah, and architecture and urban planning, landscape planning, is very much integral to achieving sustainability, or to help build in responses to climate change. Whether it's a cooler building, whether it's a more biodiversity friendly campus, or built infrastructure. So, basically, I would say that you can, if you love architecture and the built environment, and you want to bring in all these new dimensions to it, and become increase, make your portfolio wider. This is a good opportunity.
Yeah, and I could just add to it, I'm an architect by training as well. And we do teach courses in the program about the built environment, about buildings and climate change, about net zero buildings. So there's a lot of sort of interaction between the built environment that you learn in an architecture or any other built environment spatial course, and the courses and the program that we are running here.
The other perspective to this question is that when you are in an architecture school, scale is an issue. So you look at the issue from a building scale. But when you come to an interdisciplinary program like this, your scale widens. So then you are looking at from a city, regional, and other kinds of scales. So it's not that your disciplinary knowledge has gone waste, but you get an opportunity to integrate, scale, and get all these diverse perspectives into the framework, analytical framework.
Thank you. So let me read out the next question. It's by Saiful. Dear panelists, thank you for the session. I'm currently exploring the 5 master's programs at IIHS, and I find myself a bit unsure about which one aligns best with my long-term aspirations. I'm keen to build a career in impact investing and social impact consulting, working with organizations such as the Britspan Group, Dalberg Advisors, Acumen, Omidyar Network, and similar firms in India and globally that focus on solving complex development and urban challenges. At the moment, I'm particularly inclined towards the MSc in Urban Economic and Infrastructure Development, but I would really value your guidance on whether this program or any other IHS program would best prepare someone aiming for these roles. Could you share your perspective on this?
So in every master's, there will be flavors of what you are trying to do. It is about where you would like to locate yourself in terms of your practice. So, and what is your role? For example, and I'll illustrate this with an example. If you are sitting in a private equity firm and trying and figuring out a funding proposal which is aligned to a nature-based infrastructural intervention, which is impact investment, your knowledge about infrastructure helps you structure investments. Your knowledge about what that nature-based infrastructure produces as outcomes in terms of enhanced ecosystem services, in terms of livelihood connects, etc., will help you connect with the impact investing framework. So I don't think that there are any strict, you'll get flavors everywhere, all the 5 courses. It's a question of what would be your entry point and what is the lens through which you look at what you're trying to do. I think if a lot of capital is moving around the world through the climate and sustainability lens, both in climate and sustainability, there are dedicated courses that helps you to understand how do we finance these kinds of interventions. Uh, then these two are the places where you should be more focused on. Having said so, if you are able to get through, because it's a competitive process, so you should widen your choices. So if you apply in economic and infrastructure development, there too we'll talk about climate and infrastructure. There too we'll talk about what do we mean by sustainable infrastructure. There too we'll talk about what are the outcomes of infrastructure, how jobs are generated, how how impacts transcend, get through the system. So those there will be a particular way. In climate, there will be a particular way, but you will find synergies, and you will find many opportunities where you through which you are able to cross learn, apply your knowledge in other contexts through internships and dissertation that Jagdish was talking about.
I just want to add that, the first two terms are common and across all the master's programs. So they learn all the economic, the social, the ecological dimensions of development as a whole, and so that itself is, so basically you're going to get all of those insights from different dimensions. And then and then of course, third term onwards, you start taking electives which are building a little bit more core knowledge within that particular masters. But there are opportunities to have to cross list, to select an elective which is cross listed with one of the other masters program. So you could actually craft your pathway regardless of which master's program you're in. You could, within that, you could actually say that, okay, I'm moving towards, combination of finance and with say sustainability, or with the infrastructure and finance and whatever. So you could give it that flavor.
Saiful also has another question. For students who may wish to pursue a PhD at leading global universities, or after completing masters at IIHS, what kind of institutional and faculty support are typically available? Specifically, I'm curious about mentorship in areas such as research advising, dissertation or writing sample development, and letters of recommendation, as well as whether IIHS has a global engagement or international partnerships office that supports students in navigating applications and academic transitions abroad.
Just to point out that even before we founded the IIHS deemed to be university, IIHS over many years has believed in fostering collaborations and networks at all scales, at local, regional, national, and global scales. And if you look at the profile of the faculty who are teaching the master's program, and of course, we also have an interdisciplinary PhD program. And many of us have done research over many years, and you can look at our profiles, and we are very well networked. So if you want to pursue a PhD abroad, the mentorship, the support, the learning and experience that the faculty have at IIHS it will definitely give you an edge in many ways, and give you the support and the confidence to be able to go to a university abroad, or for that matter, a very good university within the country as well. And because research and academia are very much part of IIHS, in spite of the fact that we are also a practice-based institution, and that makes us unique. And there will be opportunities that will come to you simply because of this interface between practice, research, scholarship, and actual real-world work that IIHS has been doing over the many years.
I'm mindful of time, so I think this is the last question we have, is how to take admissions to this university. And I think it's also a good moment to stop our conversation with this question. So basically, the admissions are open now for the term for the year 2026-2027. You can log into our website, iihs.ac.in. And you will have the application form there. And my colleague Subhay may speak a little bit more after we conclude this conversation. So I want to thank you so much, Professor Jagdish and Professor Amir, for your time. And I hope that the audience have had some answers to what you might have been thinking, wanting to know from us. Keep on listening to this webinar series, because we will cover the other master's programs as well. And you'll get to know a lot more about our programs through the other webinars as well. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Prathijna.
Thank you.
Thank you, Prathijna. Thank you, Amir. Thank you, Jagdish. Thank you, everyone, for joining in for our webinar today. I have posted some links down for you to look at how to apply to our master's program. Our prospectus are up, so please download those. General FAQs are here, so are the sample question paper links. But if you're interested to know more about our other programs, every Thursday we have webinars and you can register for them. And we also are starting IIHS City Walks in Calcutta, Jaipur, and Delhi to give a little bit of flavor of who we are and how do we teach our pedagogy. So if you want to come and experience those, please do sign up for those. The links are in the comments on the chat below. Thank you, everyone. See you next Thursday.